But thank you so much for joining us, Cynthia. You are one of my idols, and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you. I wish it was under happier circumstances, but thank you for taking the time to speak with us. And everyone, Cynthia McKinney is an amazing former Congresswoman and former Green Party presidential candidate, and so we're honored to have you. So,
well, I'm honored to actually be a part of this series of vigils. This is my second one, and the first time around I talked about the impact that WikiLeaks had on me personally, because I'm a student of the COINTELPRO papers. I've read, there's thousands of them, that explain to us all of the things that our country did, that our government did. Well, those people who operate within and on behalf of the US government, they did to innocent US citizens as well as people abroad who were merely exercising their constitutional rights. There's thousands of pages, and I've read most of them. So I understand that government operatives will do anything in order to achieve what is defined as their goal, which might not be equivalent to our goal for our government. And
definitely.
So as I think about, and of course I had to have my dissertation scrubbed of all of my WikiLeaks references that I used, which in and of itself was horrible, and made me almost not want to go forward with the, you write 300 pages and then they say, oh no, you got to take out, you got to do a massive rewrite because you can't use the information that was in the WikiLeaks documents. But the WikiLeaks documents are as important for us to understand what it is that our governments are doing, because of course it's primarily the US government, but also the US government as it related to other countries, or as it relates to other countries as well. So in order to satisfy them and actually end up getting my PhD, I had to remove them. That's, but the kind of censorship that demonstrated, and that merely occurred because of the laws that are on the books in the US right now, mainly the Patriot Act, which will imprison well, of course, we know not only librarians, but journalists as well, who utilize certain information. And so because the Obama administration had prosecuted Barrett Brown, the librarian said, oh no, you got to take that out because, and then what we found was that not a single published dissertation had used WikiLeaks. Now, I hope that that circumstance has changed, because WikiLeaks is a tremendous tool for those of us who want to tell the truth about what our governments are doing. And of course, the greatest purveyor of violence on the planet being the United States government, then of course it's incumbent upon us to know, as particularly as taxpayers, to know what the heck our government is doing in our name with our tax dollars.
Exactly.
This is the service that WikiLeaks provided to, or provides, I should say, to all of us, that we can point to official US government documents and say, this is the impact of what the United States did at a particular point in time. Now, why is this important? It's important because of first and foremost, our quote unquote democracy, I should say our system of governance, is only as good as the information that we have. And so if we don't have good information, we cannot have good governance. And if we don't have good governance, we're not going to have a good government.
Literally, I've heard Assange say that exact thing, that a civilization is only as good as its information. I mean, practically word for word. So I absolutely agree. That's a
That's right.
huge point.
That's right. And so now, what is it that we learned from the COINTELPRO papers that might inform us about what Julian's current circumstances are? Well, one of the things that we learned from those papers was that the United States government actively targeted certain individuals who acted on their beliefs within the constitutional rights, of course, but they targeted them with what Senator Frank Church called illegal and un-American activities. So the US government violated the Constitution in order to silence people who were telling the truth about what the US government was doing. Now, does that sound familiar?
Absolutely.
And so when I look at the individuals who have done this tremendous service of putting forward the truth for all of us to know, they have been targeted. And it's not just Julian. Julian, of course, is the example that is up here. But there were other people who also were targeted and who are suffering as a result of illegal and un-American activities that, of course, have been made less illegal because of laws like the Patriot Act.
Absolutely. No, I think that's such an important thing to remember, that WikiLeaks would not be able to publish any material if it weren't for people that went to them as sources and whistleblowers. And many of them have suffered as a result. And so, yeah, the bravery extends, from WikiLeaks out to its sources, and also other people, just journalists like Michael Hastings, who were writing really, really important messages and then were punished for it. And it's interesting. I want to go back to what you said earlier about having to scrub your dissertation of WikiLeaks information. And the reason I find that so incredible and unbelievable is that when you look up in Google Scholar, WikiLeaks documents have been cited 40,000+ times in court cases, in academic papers. So to think that that level of censorship was used in that way, it's mind-boggling. It's astounding. So
that was 2015. And so as of 2015, there had not been a single published dissertation that used the WikiLeaks as reference. Imagine that. Yeah, unfathomable. Okay.
Definitely.
And there's something else that comes to us from the COINTELPRO papers that informs us of US government behavior. And that is the way the United States government, well, basically they had assassination attempts on foreign leaders. So it's not just regime change operations. It would go all the way up to actually killing people. And of course, we know Patrice Lumumba of Congo at that time. Well, at that time it was Congo, and then Zaire, and then back to Democratic Republic of Congo, was the first of the leaders who was authorized by a US president to be killed. And so these documents inform us of the ways in which the US will send its operatives in nefarious, under-the-table, covert ways in order to influence the policies of these other countries. Now, the reason I say that is because it is clear when you have a 180-degree turn in policy, something happened. There was an intervention. And so we can look at Ecuador and we can say, okay, Ecuador had this policy at this time And then Ecuador had a change in leadership, but that leadership was supposedly in concert with, and then all of a sudden something happened. Now, remember when Hillary Clinton said she sent out her minions as Secretary of State, sent the minions out to get DNA of the ambassadors, to get all of this information, because the bottom line is that we know that the US government will use any information that it is able to glean, including the DNA status, the health status of individuals, whatever their weaknesses are, psychological profiles created of leaders, and they will turn them around. So
Absolutely.
Clearly something happened. And my suspicion is this is just another example of the good old USA making an offer that Moreno couldn't refuse, or making a threat, as John Perkins, economic hitman, reminds us as well. Either you go along with us or we'll send in the jackals.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point, for sure.
That's right. So I don't put it past the United States to be holding the new Ecuadorian leadership hostage. It is as much the same way as they are holding Julian hostage. And so my commendations go to you and Susie Dawson and everybody else who has organized this, to the WikiLeaks team, the average ordinary folks who have demonstrated and participated in the protests, and then people who do these live streams. So this is sort of like a necessary activity that we have to participate in, and I'm just happy that I was invited to join you all, because my heart is definitely there. And so this is a way for me to at least kind of physically put my body, as Mario Savio, my favorite guy, said, against the gears and the levers and the wheels of the machine. And we say to the owners, either you stop it or we're gonna stop it. And so you guys are doing whatever it is that's possible that we can do to stop it.
Well, thank you so much. And it is an absolute honor to be with the guests that spend their time on this vigil repeatedly, month after month. And I think that the way that you just encapsulated the pressure that Ecuador is under, whether it's through bribes or threats, is really something that people should recognize, especially, and that's one of the really telling and confusing things. When we go back to just earlier this year in January, we found out that Moreno, not Rafael Correa, but Moreno had provided Julian Assange citizenship and diplomatic immunity, and there was an effort, it seemed, to safely get him out of the embassy. But then, as you said, we have this 180 turn, and we can only imagine why. But I think that explains that type of switching all of a sudden in a really important way, that it's not something where it's like we don't need to blame Moreno. We need to look at the cause, which is obviously going to be the pressure of the United States.
Yes, and you know, it's my professor, my leader, my hero, Peter Dale Scott, who introduced the term deep state. And so it's very important for us to look at the deep state, the operation of the deep state, when you have these 180-degree policy changes, because that's something that he did. And so after the murder of JFK, of course, you know, a lot of people, that generation of people, they were shaken, and they devoted their entire lives to trying to understand, ascertain just exactly what had happened, how it happened, why it happened. And the why is really the important thing. And so it was Peter Dale Scott who came up with this idea of the deep state. And so we have to look at these operatives that are there no matter, they are in government, they are out of government, but their policy influence remains no matter where they are. And this is what we have to look at, because even though we've had a change in administration now, the bottom line is that certain things have not changed. Certain things should have changed, and they didn't change. So why did they not change? And I think part of the explanation of why things have not yet changed is because you've got these very powerful people who are burrowed into the system, and they, with a phone call, with a they are able, with a message, they are able to stop things that should happen and to start things that should not happen.
Absolutely. And during these vigils, we've often discussed the fact of this unelected power structure that is exactly what you're talking about. And that explains why, whether it's Obama or Trump in office, the same policies in some critical areas, they just remain the same. And that is evidence of exactly what you're talking about. And unfortunately, the persecution of Assange is one of those things that seems to remain no matter who gets elected. So.
That's right. So now let me ask you, I heard your discussion of the idea of sending postcards and letters, which is a fabulous idea, and something that I hadn't thought about. So that's something that we can organize and actually get done. Have there been any other ideas that have come up from the series of live streams that are worthy of us having some follow-up on?
Well, I think that one of the things that I emphasized in the last vigil was the fact that you don't have to be a Cynthia McKinney or a Kevin Zeese or somebody with a large following, and you don't have to be good at writing or speaking to be effectively helpful. And I think that one of the beautiful things that I've seen come out of these vigils have been the artwork, the music that you're now hearing as our theme song, and those are from people that are not. They haven't ever been on stream, but they have been inspired to help and spend their time and creativity for that. And I thank those people so much, as well as obviously our tech team as well. But I think that type of creativity is what I hope we will continue to inspire and encourage and kind of reflect on how important that is as we move forward.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear. I didn't hear the theme song, so now how can I hear it?
Well, we basically when we switch between segments, I can't hear it either. And so, but when you listen to this segment or the stream after we're done for the weekend, you'll be able to hear it between every single segment it will play. And I can also send you the direct link to the song. But yeah,
great.
It's just it's really, really wonderful to see basically these creative measures sort of blooming around this vigil, and not even directly in relation to it, but just around it. But I don't know if you want to go over again, maybe just some thoughts on what's happening now with Assange in light of your experience of retribution for truth telling. For those who don't know, I mean, I want to really emphasize that you are somebody who has been a truth teller in your own right as well, and you suffered that political retribution as part of that. For our audience's benefit, can you talk about that and maybe talk about it in relation to what we see Assange going through?
Well, that's it's really a painful set of memories that I have when I thought I was elected to the Congress to represent my constituents and to do what was right on behalf of my country. And that's a big joke. So, I learned really the hard way about this deep state. And actually, I formulated some theories based on some of the academic work of other people who have preceded me, like Peter Dale Scott, but also another Peter at University of Connecticut, Peter Turchin, who came up, I guess I could say he further developed this idea of the deep state, so that today we have several factions of the deep state that are fighting each other. So I would say we have in the US now several deep states, and these factions are fighting each other, which provides us kind of an opportunity, if we the people can get our act together, to actually add to the chaos and the disruption. So you remember when Rahm Emanuel said, don't let a good, what did he say? Don't let a good, what did he say?
Was it a disaster go to waste?
Something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to say, you know, these people create chaos. And I would say, he who has a plan in the midst of chaos will win. Because the chaos that is created is purposeful. And it's for the purpose of delivering a set of circumstances that will lead to a different policy. And so if we can formulate our plan, my campaign manager used to say, Cynthia, make your plan, work your plan, and your plan will work for you. So if we can also formulate a plan and take advantage of this chaotic, disruptive period now, maybe we actually can win. Because I'm reminded that in the 1960s, you see, we almost won. We, the progressive people, even though, you know, I was a bit young at the time, but I still consider myself, you know, those were my people, right? The anti-war people, the Chicano movement people, the Puerto Rican independence people, the Black movement people, all those people were my people, right? And some kind of way, the synergy was such that the US government, deep state, had to reveal itself through these deep events because we were winning. And we almost won. And that's why we had that decade of the 60s of assassinations of US people that took place because we were winning. So now imagine if we could put ourselves back in a position where we can almost win again. Now, so I've been thinking about how can we win? What are the conditions that are necessary for us to win? Now, you asked me another question and I went off in a completely different tangent because I told you it's painful to think about the things that I went through. But what I went through pales in comparison to what Julian is going through, right? And so we just, you know, and I look at people like Seligman. He was a former governor of Alabama. And the Republicans they couldn't believe, he's a Democrat, so the Republicans couldn't believe a Democrat would win and actually, you know, excite people in Alabama, of all places, that's theirs. And so they filed some trumped up charges. You know what happens, and he went to prison. And you know, you think about, so my mom, in many of the things that I've done, my mom says she's surprised they didn't kill me. you know. They tried to put me in prison, but that didn't work, you know, because I was honest. And but you know, what we've also seen is that they're not above lying about you. They will create something, fabricate something just as an excuse. And we know this from COINTELPRO as well, where they would put people in prison. They call it bad jacketing on trumped up charges. They would infiltrate first they charge you with charges that weren't true, and then they would infiltrate your legal team to make sure you didn't get good representation. And they did all of these things. And so, you know, I got maligned. I was a caricature of me was created, and that creation was then put forward as being me. And so I would go places and people would say, "Oh, you're nothing like what I thought you were." And it's because the media lied, you know, and they continue to lie. And either they lie by commission or they lie by omission, but they are lying. So what's happening to Julian is that taken to an extreme. I mean, you know, John Kiriakou did the right thing and went to prison. So thank goodness Julian is not in a prison cell, because then that introduces a whole nother set of circumstances that we would have to deal with, you know, in terms of dealing with the legal system, which is criminal for its injustice.
Absolutely.
So at least Julian's situation is purely, totally within the realm of politics. And so if we exercise our politics, the thought would be that we can save his life. Now, I believe that Julian's life is in danger. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that these people, based on what they've done in the past, I know they don't care anything about human life. They don't care anything about the Constitution. They don't care anything about people's rights. They don't care anything about the American people. They don't care anything about anything except what it is that they specifically care about. That's it. And they will use any means. I was almost better to say like Malcolm X, any means necessary in order to get what they want. And I guess that's why Malcolm said we need to be willing to use any means necessary to stop them. So yes, there is a price, and a lot of people don't realize it. I mean, I remember Indira Singh at the 911 People's Commission, the very first thing that we did of 911 Truth. And Indira Singh, who worked on the PTEC, which became Promise Software, she, and eventually she had to go into hiding, and nobody's heard from her since. So she described her life. I remember Madame Bandao, who told the truth about what was going on in Democratic Republic of Congo and the pillage that was taking place. United Nations decide they're going to investigate and make a report about what's going on and who's doing it. And she had to go into hiding for 3 years. So even though you start out just doing your job, you start out with a conviction, you're a journalist, You just want to tell the truth. You're dedicated and committed to writing what is without the editorial commentary, just writing what is. And then you write what is, and one time you do it and do it and do it, and then one time it's the wrong thing. It's the wrong time. And so then all of a sudden, the world comes crashing down on you. That's what's happened to Julian. What a brilliant idea. To provide a platform, a safe way for people who want to tell the truth about what their government is doing, to be actually able to do that. That's simple. It's really simple. But so anyway, and the idea that Hillary Clinton, I'm happy she's not in the White House, because she's the one said something about sending a drone. I mean, this is the mentality of these kind of people, and they don't
Absolutely.
need to be anywhere near public policy. Now she wants to run again. I understand. I mean, let's deliver to her in 2020 what was delivered to her in 2016, but that's a different story. So anyway, yeah, and so you can get caught up in something. You're just doing your job. You're doing what everyone has told us. We instill in our children that you don't tell lies, you're honest. This is what we instill in our children. So then when we actually do it, we get a hammer upside our head. So we have to protect WikiLeaks. We have to protect the platform. We have to protect Julian as best we can, and that's what you guys are doing.
And I think the context you bring up in showing all of these different people, from across the decades that have been so punished for doing exactly that, for truth telling, it really shows into really strong, it gives perspective to the fact that this isn't something Julian has brought upon himself. And I think the media likes to make it all about his personality or him, and what you're doing and what you're discussing shows that it's nothing to do with him or his personality. It's what he's doing as in terms of his work, which has gotten so many other people equally, punished. So I think that that's really helpful to discuss that.
Well, I had not read or seen any references to this being Julian's fault. Now that's ridiculous. Now I'll tell you one thing also, with all of this discussion about the child separations that are going on, and the Democrats jumping up and down, you would think the Democrats would be jumping up and down about freedom of speech, the rights of journalists. You would think truth and governance, you would think they would be jumping up and down for that, but no. Okay, I just read, and I didn't know it, that Julian has children.
Exactly.
So now, this is like, okay, mommy, where's daddy? Well, he's not in prison. Daddy loves you, but he can't talk to you. He can't tell you he loves you. You can't go and hug him. This is like punishment of an extended, this is extended punishment, because now this is punishment of the family.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point to recognize. And it's one that I agree. I think a lot of people don't even know that Julian Assange, is a father and has a family. And so it's not only an egregious, trespass on his freedom of speech and ability to operate as a journalist. It's stopping him from speaking to his own family and friends. So it's as you said, it's that multifaceted sort of punishment that reaches out to even the family of people that are truth tellers.
That's right. That's
incredible.
Right. And so then, the thing that hurt me in my own situation, the thing that hurt me the most was that it was my family, it was my mom and dad who were punished, and my son. They were the ones who bore the punishment. It's okay if I do something, even if I do something that's right, and it backfires some kind of way. If it backfires on me, then I have to grow up and accept that, and do some introspection and see, okay, is there a different way I could have done it, or if there was or whatever. But to watch my mom and dad and my child suffer because of something I did, it was unacceptable, and it was most painful. And so now we have to understand that this is wrong on so many levels. And one of those levels is that the innocent, the most innocent, are the most hurt.
That is so unfortunately true. And I think that when that happens, when a person's truth teller's family is the one that are targeted, it's really it goes to the deep state's opinion of that person as empathetic, that they would deeply feel towards their family. And so it's almost a backhanded compliment that you are assumed to be a good person, but because it's just absolutely heartless, though, and unbelievable. And I think that when it comes to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, I think the public still, because of the propaganda narratives, do not understand the things that Assange has sacrificed and given up for the public benefit. And so I think that is something that is lost. And I hope that we bring that up a lot in these vigils, but outside of these vigils, I hope that people remember that.
Well, he didn't, wasn't something he was able to put in his bank account, right? He didn't sell us out. He didn't sell out his values. He actually strengthened us, and he strengthened our professed values. So now how can that ever be bad? How can that be bad? How can that be, oh, you brought it on yourself? How can that ever be? So, I just think about being able to go to the WikiLeaks platform, and I can darn near find just about anything I want, And so now, is that a service or is that a disservice? That's a service. When the United States government it took them 19 years to admit that Eisenhower authorized the murder of Patrice Lumumba. It took the US government 19 years. We shouldn't have to wait 19 years for the truth. We shouldn't have to wait 19 years in order to be able to write history correctly. And this is what those documents allow us to do, to write history correctly. Now, there's value in that, not just an academic sort of thing so that people who are in an ivory tower sitting over there spouting or spewing different theories can say, okay, well, I think it's this theory and it's more that theory and it's blah, blah, blah. No. Average, ordinary people now who are taxpayers can say, my government did this and I disagree with it. And therefore, I'm going to pay attention like I didn't pay attention before. So we've got more people as a result of WikiLeaks able to pay attention and tell the truth about what the US government does. That makes us stronger, and it's supposed to make us stronger. That should be applauded. That should not be punished.
Completely agree. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
But now what it shows us is that everything, I just did an interview, and the journalist entitled the conversation that we had, "It's All Fake." Basically, I have to borrow his title and say, now everything that my government says to me about respect for human rights, respect for individual rights, respect for the Constitution, everything they say is fake. They have been exposed in a way that makes it patently clear, not just the US government, but the UK government as well, and the Ecuador government. Now we can see. But like you said, and I want to hasten, that Ecuador is a victim in all of this as well, because I'm sure they've been leaned on. I'm absolutely certain they've been leaned on. So, but the US and the UK, man, these are some duplicitous governments. And what it informs me of is that I don't need to be just concerned about who I'm going to vote for in 2020. I need to be concerned about my entire political system. The US political system is corrupt. It is so corrupt that we need a whole new system. We need to start looking at different systems of governance, because the one we have now is built on a foundation of lies. That's what Julian's treatment informs us.
That is absolutely brilliant, a brilliant point, and I think that that is so true. I hope that people listening really like to let that sink in, because that is exactly right. Exactly. Do you think in the near future, do you think there's any way that the public's response to this will make a real difference when it comes to reconnecting Julian and encouraging, basically also, as you said, when we view Ecuador as another victim in all of this, showing solidarity with them in some way? Do you think that is a good way forward? Or how do you think that this what hopefully will become a movement should do in order to actually make a difference?
I think, without a doubt, the reason that Julian is still alive is because of the public, the eyes of the public being focused like a laser on that building and what's happening inside that building. And thank goodness that building is there, because otherwise it might have been, remember Christopher Dorner? He's the man, the first man in the United States who had a drone pursue him inside the United States. So when Hillary jokes and said, well, maybe it wasn't even a joke, there's precedent for that. So there's no telling what would have happened if we didn't have that building. So I think the eyes of the public, what you guys are doing is so important, because people can tune in from all over the planet, and people can think for just a minute about Julian Assange. They can remember Julian Assange. And now we've got a theme song where we can hum the music, hum that tune about Julian Assange. So the culture is there, the eyes and the attention are there, the people are there. we, I would hate to think what would possibly be the case if this attention were not there.
That is a good point, and that's one of the reasons that, and I know Susie and I talked about this at the time. At first, we discussed having one giant event, and it, you know, that would go as long as possible. But then we realized, well, if that's the end of it, if we have one giant event and then nothing else, it's too easy to let that go. And so
That's right.
So it also you know, allows people, if they can't make it 1 month, to be with us the next month and work around schedules. But most of all, it refuses to allow this to slip through the cracks of the news cycle, which it would otherwise.
That's right. And I'm so glad that I've been able to participate 2 times now, because otherwise, if I were teaching, and you know, I teach in Asia, so daylight is like nighttime over there, and you know, everything is all twisted and turned around, and I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But because I've been able to take the semester off, I can participate, and I'm just so happy that you guys have included me in this, and I give my, you know, my little 2 cents worth. But you know, at the end, it's like it helps me, because I feel as if I'm a part of something that's good, that I know is necessary, and I know that it helps other people to understand how important Julian Assange is. As, I mean, he's just a human being. You know, and you think about our bodies are fragile. And if we don't get enough sun, you know, we don't get enough exercise, we don't, you know, so within this vessel, there's this huge brain of Julian's that was able to imagine all of this, you know, platform and everything, the service that he provides. But at the end of the day, he's just a human being, and he's fragile, and we need to do everything we can. I remember at one point, somebody, they gave me, you know, and I'm not really a religious person, but even though I went to elementary school and high school Catholic, you know, going to mass every Friday and everything. But there was somebody who gave me, there's some, oh, now I'm going to show how little I really know, but there's a saying like in the Bible where somebody's walking on the beach and they're making these footprints in the sand, and then the person is weak and the person gets lifted up, but the walk continues. And so that's what we're doing now with Julian. The walk continues, and we hope that with our collective strength that we're able to put him down gracefully on the beach, and then on that one glorious day, he will start walking himself.
That is beautifully, beautifully put. And I think that image is perfect. It's really, really inspiring. And I think that is the sentiment of the people that participate in this vigil, whether it's the tech people, the hosts, or the guests, and the people that are sharing it on social media and just watching. I think that's what we all want to be the outcome of this fight. And I hope that happens. I'm asking this of pretty much all of the guests, because we don't know whether Julian Assange will be able to see this, but in case he does, what would you tell Julian if he could be watching this? What would you express to him?
Wow. Well, what would I say? One is that these live streams show you that you are not alone. Even though we know that you are in that embassy alone. And we don't know what your conditions are because you've been cut off from us. But this is like an expression of love, really, you know? And there's lots of people who love you. So just understand that, Julian, that even though these days, I know you're counting the 24 hours in a day. And then you have to turn around and count the next 24 hours in a day. But remember that there are some people like Nelson Mandela who spent 27 years counting 24 hours in a day and then counting the next 24 hours and then came out and became president. So, President Assange, we are waiting for you.
That's a great one. Yeah, no, I think that the response to Julian Assange's current predicament needs to take the type of form that support for Nelson Mandela took in the 1980s and onwards. And I definitely take inspiration from that movement.
Yes, that's right.
We all need to have that type of solidarity. Are there we have about 10 minutes left in this segment. Is there anything else that we haven't covered or talked about that you'd like to get out to the audience and express today in particular?
Well, I don't think there's anything else. I took the opportunity to go on the WikiLeaks Twitter feed to see, what they're discussing, and they're showing the Lula is out of prison. Well, the judge ruled that he should be released immediately. And so that's good news. I remember Christina Kirchner said that Latin American populism was dead. And it certainly did appear that there were, that the progressive politics was just walking backwards. But every day, those 24 hours that we're alive, we have hope. I remember Afeni Shakur told me, first of all, you have to live. And that was Tupac Shakur's mom. She told me, first of all, Cynthia, you have to live. She wanted me out of politics. She didn't want me to have anything to do with politics because, she had seen too many of her friends in the Black Panther Party murdered, totally destroyed, lives destroyed. These are the things that come with this territory. You stand your values ground and you go against the powers that be. And so you become a hero, but you become a target. So she said, Cynthia, you have to stay alive. And so our first and foremost priority is to keep Julian alive. The rest we can handle. And the rest you guys can handle. You and Susie, I know y'all got it covered. So the rest we can handle. We just have to keep his spirits up and keep him aware that there is another day and there is a better day.
That is breathtaking, and the examples you've provided us of solidarity and the care towards fellow human beings that are suffering as a result of this corruption is really, really just breathtaking. So thank you for those sentiments. As someone who has worked in the political system, do you think that there is any chance that legislation could be passed that would somehow protect whistleblowers, or is the corruption in government far too far gone for that type of effort to be worth, pursuing?
Well, we can always hope that we could pass legislation that would protect whistleblowers. But we have to understand that right now, the environment is toxic. So we've got political operatives who are in charge of the media, and they will willfully lie and not tell the truth in order to advance a political cause. So we're in this kind of environment where even if we were able to get the legislation passed, the targeting, the public targeting of Julian has been so toxic that it makes it really difficult, even though it's our right to know and it's the right thing to do. And we do have some laws on the books, but these guys are criminals. And they will defy the law in order to pursue a political objective. That is why our situation is so toxic right now. So I think if we can get legislation passed, yes, let's push it. Let's draft it. Let's find some people to introduce it in the Five Eyes countries. All need to have it. But we also, on a deeper level, need to be thinking, okay, if these guys are duking it out, these deep state factions are duking it out, let's us figure out a way that we can wedge ourselves in there so that we can throw them off completely. Really, honestly, regime change, revolution is what we need.
I agree. And I think that what you're saying, the way that I'm hearing that is that before we would try, like, we can't trust legislation, even if it would pass, to be followed. And so that awareness of what the reality is that we're working with is so crucial to them being able to do anything about it. And I completely agree with that. And, it's unfortunate that things are as extremely corrupt as they are, but we are at least able to speak about it right now and recognize it in the way that we are.
That's right.
But thank you so much for visiting with us today and expressing this solidarity with Julian. It's absolutely an honor to speak with you. And as I said in the beginning, you are one of my absolute idols. So I'm so glad I've been able to speak with you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. And for everybody out there, just keep the faith. Keep our eyes on the prize. Keep our eyes on Julian.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cynthia. And I will I'll send you Julian Assange's address, and there's a link that I'll send so that we can get that letter writing impetus going.
Yes, count me in on that. And also make sure you send me the link so I can post it around and I can hear the new theme song.
Absolutely. I will do that. As soon as we're off air, I'll organize that. Thank you, Cynthia, so much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.